Luca is the, as I said, the CEO of WISE, an Italian firm that's developing some very interesting new technology for implanted electrodes and devices. So Luca, go ahead.
So thank you very much, and thank you also really for the opportunity to present my company tonight. Well, actually today I'm actually talking from Europe, and I'm very sorry I couldn't be there with you today, but still the travel ban was on until yesterday. So WISE is a medical device company, and we are completely focused on the development of electrodes. And by the way, congrats to all the gold electrode winner. And this is nice to start talking just after this award. And what we do in WISE can be summarized immediately from our vision. So WISE wants to be the first company producing neuroleads, soft, conformable, stretchable, and minimally invasive. And we have a pathway to do so, starting from a first product that is an intraoperative lead for cortical recording and stimulation during brain surgery. And this actually is a product that has been achieved the CE marking this year and is now commercially available in Europe. And a second product that I will describe more in detail, which is a chronic electrode for that we call Heron for spinal cord stimulation. And this is now in advanced engineering phase. And I hope you will enjoy what is its advantages. But in the long run, really the vision of the company is to be able to revolutionize the lead manufacturing for a large number of medical devices in the neurospace specifically, but also potentially in the future other places. And why do we want to revolutionize neuroleads? Because we see now, well, a pretty big problem comparing the soft nature of the neurotissue of the brain, of the spinal cord, and the common electrodes that are used with IPGs and the standard stimulator. So there is a huge mechanical mismatch between the two. And this is mainly because the current neuroleads are made by hard metal conductors, so hard metal pieces embedded into polymer that can be somehow stretchable, but generally pretty thick. Well, we have developed a technology that allows to embed a stretchable conductor directly in a very thin foil, making electrodes that are extremely low invasive. We can reduce increase the conformability of the electrodes and also produce new geometry of the leads. And we do this by embedding directly the metal into the polymer. So we form a composite material, which is stretchable and biocompatible. We can do easily manufacturing from micron scale to macro scale with arbitrary complexity. And we can work on very thin and soft membranes. And basically we have a strong freedom on the electrode dimension and size. And finally, we can even work on balloons, which is not very relevant for neuro application, but potentially in the future for other fields. So I will start describing shortly what we consider the medical proof of concept of the technology. And it is the WISE cortical strip, which makes our WISE neuro monitoring family. And well, I guess all of you are well aware of cortical strips are used during brain surgery, are placed on the brain surface, on the motor cortex generally, and are used for stimulating, recording the brain to check the brain activity during a resection of a tumor. So this is an invasive electrode, stays during hours, so less than 1 day, and it's a single-use electrode. And the market is at the moment is small, but is growing, and it's in this moment is very interesting place to be. Well, the cortical strip, or the WISE cortical strip, is indeed intended to be used for recording, monitoring, and stimulating electrical signals on the brain during brain tumor resection. And to show the difference between our product and the current one, I hope you will be able to see this video streaming. You can see on the left, the commercial strip that is now available. This is actually the market leader. And you can see that it's not able to conform to the surface of the brain, while our to the right, as you see, behaves like a skin, a second skin on the surface of the brain. It adapts by its own, it adheres on the surface, and at the end, it brings a better contact and improved reliability of the neuromonitoring. Well, we actually performed a clinical trial in Europe that was concluded successfully. And as I said, we obtained CE marking, and now we are launching the commercialization of this product. And by next year, we hope also to be in the USA. We are now going through the FDA clearance. So just a couple of things about the clinical study to give you a little bit of ideas. So it was over 32 patients in 3 countries, Germany, Switzerland, and Italy. And at the end, we directly compare our electrode with the predicate. And so we were able to demonstrate that indeed our electrodes have half an impedance of the comparator, even if they are geometrically the same, but this is due to the better adhesion and also high surface area of our electrodes. And also we're able to see a better adhesion. And this is now, as you can see, we have 85% of the strip that were used having all the 5 electrodes at an impedance below 5 kilo ohms, which is an ideal impedance. This occurred only on 11% of cases with the comparator, but even more remarkably, generally with the comparator, in 1 cases over 3, you have at least 1 electrode not in touch with the brain. And this occurred only on 7% of cases with our own. And obviously the surgeon was free to do whatever he wanted during the surgical procedure. We were measuring the impedance. And finally, we didn't have adverse events. So now we, as I said, we are launching, we are now directly distributing the product in selected countries in Europe. We will go through distributors and we expand by next year. And but this is, again, really just a demonstration that our technology can indeed go on the brain of patients. Because now what is the real challenge for us is to complete the hero lead. What we consider really our breakthrough product. And well, I think I don't have to explain to this meeting the relevance of spinal cord stimulation. So I will not waste your time here, but I want to stress, as you know, that actually all the active player on the market at the end have a family of leads that are very similar between themselves. So all the players, Medtronic, Boston, Abbott, and Nevro, have either cylindrical leads or paddles. And what is interesting that from a user perspective, 80% of the implantation are done by pain therapists. And pain therapists, as you know, can use only cylindrical leads because have to implant through a needle. But from a performance perspective, it's well known in the literature that paddles are much better because they're directional, they allow better coverage, they have higher energy efficiency, and also have a lower migration. So our take is that at the end, most of the market has not access to the best electrodes. And as you know, paddles require today a very invasive surgical procedure to be implanted. Well, we want to solve this by putting together the advantage of the 2 products to make the first paddle that can be implanted percutaneously by a pain therapist, what we call an expandable percutaneous lead. And indeed, this is the Heron. It is an electrode that, like in Heron, has wings that are closed into a catheter, can be inserted percutaneously, and then open into the epidural space, allowing to have at the end a paddle implanted through a needle. And we have already developed the product. We are in advanced engineering. This is not the last design, and which I cannot disclose yet, but this shows you already that we can make paddles that are 84% thinner than a standard paddle. And we can indeed host the electrode in a catheter. We can open in a adipose-like environment. And we tested the long-term stability of our electrodes, both in stimulation and now in vivo, on animals. And we also tested in human anatomy doing cadaver labs, where we could demonstrate that indeed we could do percutaneous implantation. We could navigate the electrode, so the electrode is steerable and easy of use, and also the current placement of the electrode. So we are now advancing, and in next year we're entering into the validation phase of this product. The idea is then to get to a clearance of the product, to start a test in the US market, to then go through a scale up, going through the large players. Just a couple of news info about our story. So the company was founded back in 2011 as a very small entity. And during our history, we were able to raise 30 million of equity in, $30 million of equity. The last round was last year by $16.5 million. And this will allow us to finish the validation of the hero lead. And we also were able to collect pretty relevant grants. I don't know how much are you familiar with ERC Accelerator, which is pretty selective grant in Europe. Well, in our story anyway, we collected about $7 million of grants, which clearly were nice to add up. And finally, the team, we are 24 people in Italy. We are mainly engineer and production people. I'm the CEO and founder. Sandro Ferrari is the director of operation. Julia is heading the administration and finance, and Thomas, formerly Medtronic, is supporting on business development. And we have a large base of investors that believe in us since the beginning. And finally, we have a manufacturing plant where we have our clean rooms. We are ISO 13485 qualified. As I said, now we are productive on the first product. So this is WISE in short, and I'm really looking forward for your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Luca, thank you very much for the presentation. Exciting. In a moment, I'll open it up to questions from our online and in-room audiences. But I'm going to ask the first question. If you can stop sharing your screen so we can. Thank you, Luca. So you have a product line that's brain-oriented, and you have a product line that's spinal cord oriented. These are two different markets. Clearly, the spinal cord market is more mature. It's a bigger market at the moment, but as you recognize, crowded already with existing players. Whereas the brain market and the DBS market and the cortical stimulation market, much more wide open, fewer competitors, but not quite as mature. In the long run, which of the two do you think represents better financial potential to WISE?
Yeah, well, for sure, the second one, the spinal, also because there we're not planning to become an alternative player, but we plan to be adopted by one of the players. So we're focused specifically on the electrode. Obviously, the first product is what is validating us, is what also will allow to enter a first market, which is certainly less interesting than the second, but where indeed the barrier to entry are much lower. And so that's why indeed we are covering the two. So now we are a production company on the first product, but we are focusing all the R&D on the spinal space. But
okay,
yeah,
yep. In either market, in spinal cord stimulation or brain sensing and stimulation, what do you think is the amenability of existing vendors, and not just the vendors, but their customers, the implanting neurosurgeons or pain physicians? What do you think is the amenability to a mix and match strategy where you might have an IPG from one source and leads from a different source? I know others have thought of that. Do you think that that's a viable future for the neuromodulation industry, or do you think the industry is going to continue to be essentially getting all their components from one vendor?
That's a good question. This is the big difference between the neuro and the cardio space, by the way. And at the moment, there is really, so from the manufacturer, electrode manufacturer perspective, the IPGs look very similar because at the end, only the connector changes. So we are planning, as I said, the idea would be to then have an agreement with one of the main players. In the future, I think it would be very interesting that the manufacturer agree on a standard plug, and somehow already, substitution is done often with different IPG connected to an electrode and is done by means of adapter. I think that, and the connector look very, very similar one to the other. So it seems that there is no interest.
I'm sorry, I may have missed this. Were you suggesting that Europe would be more amenable to what I asked than the United States, or did I get that wrong?
No, I was not talking about the European market. Now, by the way, Europe, with MDR is becoming pretty complicated for that. So that's why we are targeting the USA market. So I don't know if I got completely your question, but the idea is from a regulatory perspective, we are now working to be able to attach to the standard IPGs on and as I said, having demonstrated that everything works, then going through an agreement with one of the players. and in the long run, that's just a suggestion to the large players. I think it would be interesting that the connectors become standard, and that's like it occurred with pacemakers, for instance. But again, that's something that I know is discussed since long time in the ENS, for instance. I saw several times this discussion going on.
Okay, so as I understand it, you're looking to commercialize in the U.S. First. Does that mean that your IPO will be on NASDAQ and not the Euronext?
Well, we will see. Again, there were good IPO on Neurotech recently, but certainly NASDAQ would be more interesting.
I see. Okay, do we have any questions from our online audience? Loudon, anyone with their hand raised? Okay, is there anyone in the room who has a question for Luca? Okay, if not, we want to say thank you very much, Luca. Very interesting presentation. We did, by the way, note yesterday your market entry with the cortical strip electrode, so we want to congratulate you on that, and we will be continuing to track your company as you develop new products for the neuromodulation market.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.